Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Back again with what seemingly is just a daily episode updating Ole Miss and what they're doing in the transfer portal as they land another very coveted commitment here in Decamerion Richardson coming over from Mississippi State. And this is a guy that LSU was making a very big push for, and Ole Miss comes in late, is able to land one of the more talented cornerbacks that was available in the transfer portal. And as somebody that kind of follows the NFL draft and NFL scouting community, this was a name that going back to the summer, you saw in some day two NFL mock drafts. A lot of NFL scouts were really high on a guy like Decamerion Richardson, rightfully so. I mean, 34-inch arms. Going back to his high school days, ran a 10.7 500-meter dash time. And you look at the biggest two boxes you want your cornerbacks to check: length and long speed. And Decamerion Richardson has both. He's a very fluid mover and has been very productive at the SEC level and looking to kind of boost that draft stock a little bit more heading into his fourth year of college football. Massive win for Lane Kiffin. Want to talk a little bit about where he slots into this defense and then do a little recap in terms of what Ole Miss is doing in the transfer portal. We've said it. We've covered it time and time again. The stars seem to be aligning for this Ole Miss team heading into 2024. I think Lane Kiffin sees it. I think the administration sees it. And I think a lot of the players in the program see it, right? Guys like Trey Harris, Ince Jackson Dart, those kind of guys and countless other names that could have gone to the NFL draft and would have been draft picks are coming back because they know this team can be special in 2024. Really excited to get into it. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys and a shout out to the Ole Miss fans. This has been a program that we have talked seemingly every single day about in the transfer portal. The amount of support you guys have shown, it's been absolutely amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Decamerion Richardson. And again, not necessarily the Walter Nolan grab, but you see it on the rankings in top 40 player available in the transfer portal. The number 4 cornerback available. LSU wanted this kid very badly. He was from the state of Louisiana, and Ole Miss is able to land him. And I think you're starting to see two things that kind of jump out. One, Ole Miss going back to last year's transfer portal cycle, very, very good at evaluating the defensive backs. I mean, they grabbed a bunch of guys who some of them were a little bit of projections, but played really good in 2023 for Ole Miss, right? Zamari Walton, John Sanders. And another thing that you note is they kind of have a type in terms of what they want their defensive backs. And I mean, a lot of college programs do. The NFL, very similar. They want length and they want speed. And again, Decamerion Richardson checking both of those boxes. I mean, 10.7 500-meter dash time is absolutely blazing. He's 6'2", 190 pounds, 34-inch arms. That is longer than most offensive tackles have in terms of arm length. This is a guy that can put hands on opposing wide receivers, use that length to get onto balls, break up passes, get his hands on footballs. And the thing that stood out to me kind of going through some of the PFF numbers, 6.5% missed tackle rate. And this guy is an elite tackler on the perimeter as well. And you combine all these things, it kind of makes sense why he was one of the more sought after cornerbacks that was available in the transfer portal. And you take a look at this Ole Miss roster heading into that 2024 season, it's loaded with guys that could be playing in the NFL in a couple months, right? You take a look on the offensive side of the ball. Guy like Trey Harris. I know Quinshaw Judkins is not eligible for the draft, but he wouldn't be bat an eye if he was on an NFL roster next year. You look at Jackson Dart, probably would have been a day 3 pick in the NFL draft. A guy like Jordan Watkins would have carved out a role in the NFL. Juice Wells probably would have been a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. And that's kind of just coming off the top of my head. This Ole Miss team is extremely talented. It's extremely experienced. And they had a strong nucleus heading into the transfer portal. And now they're just getting guys who are NFL caliber guys that are looking to come back for one more year. And that's kind of the bones of something special, right? When you have a loaded offense with an experienced quarterback, and then you have Lane Kiffin calling the plays, and then you look at the defense and you see how loaded it is on the defensive side of football. That is kind of when you're looking at teams that can do something special in that 2024 year. Ole Miss is kind of checking those boxes. And you take a look at what they've done in the transfer portal. This is only their 10th commitment, and it seems like they've had more commitments than that. It feels that way because they've been landing massive guys. Juice Wells, one of, if not the best receiver in the SEC heading into next year. Tyler Barron, one of the best edge rushers in the SEC last year, certainly going to be one of the top ones this year. A guy like Princely U, very similar thing. Tyler Barron, Princely U, guys that could go to the NFL draft this year and be selected in one of the 3 days. And they decide to come back. They both decide to transfer to Ole Miss. You keep scrolling down. They kind of supplement with some experienced guys in the back end. You have a Jaquan Scott, who is going to be a plug-and-play guy on that inside of the defensive line. And you scroll all the way down to a guy like Chris Paul Jr., who started off the Ole Miss transfer portal momentum, and he's kind of seems like people are forgetting about him. That dude is an all-SEC caliber linebacker. So you start looking at this Ole Miss program and what they're doing in the transfer portal. I don't see it as a complete overhaul of this roster. I think in previous for Ole Miss, you've seen it complete overhaul, right? A lot of guys hit the portal, a lot of guys come back in. And in this year, they started off going into the offseason with a really strong nucleus, right? Jackson Dart, Quinshon Judkins, Trey Harris on the outside, Jordan Watkins, Caden Prescorn, all guys that were there in the 2023 season. And they say, all right, we have a loaded roster heading into 2024. How can we close that gap, right? We are close. We're getting closer and closer to Georgia, to Alabama every single year, right? Only 2 losses on their schedule. We're both on the road to Alabama and Georgia. The gap's getting closer. This can be a year where we close the gap. What's the best way to close the gap very quickly? Going out and adding these caliber of transfer portal guys. A lot of other programs across the SEC and across the country, they're adding players in the transfer portal. A lot of those players are going to be depth pieces. They're going to be supplemental pieces. There is not that many truly premier impact players that were available in the transfer portal. What I'll say, though, is these guys were impact players, right? A guy like Chris Paul, a guy like Princely U, Tyler Barron, Juice Wells, and again, Decamerion Richardson, because of the nature that he plays the cornerback role, maybe not as big of a name as an edge rusher or a wide receiver like Juice Wells. This was one of the better cornerbacks in the SEC. And now he's coming over to Ole Miss. And again, when you have the ability to have a lockdown cornerback that you feel really good about in one-on-one coverage, it's going to allow Pete Golden in that Ole Miss defense to get aggressive in terms of blitzing, in terms of loading boxes, stopping the run. An elite cornerback gives you so much flexibility in what you want to do. And I think Decamerion Richardson, what excites me most is he's already played really good football. This guy can be truly a very good cornerback going into his 4th year of college football. I mean, look, we've talked about all these players extensively, wanted to hop on, talk a little bit about Decamerion Richardson, but the most exciting aspect about this edition is that he's a very good football player right now. I think he can be a very, very good football player in 2024. Again, 34-inch arms, 10,700 meter coming out of high school, checking all the boxes. Another massive addition for Ole Miss. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. This has been a blast to cover Ole Miss in the transfer portal. You guys have shown a ton of support. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.